Recording in progress.
Okay, it doesn't look like we have anyone else waiting. So I'm here with Ian today. He's co-hosting with me. Thank you, Ian. You're always so ready to help serve and help your fellow agents, and I really appreciate that about you. I think you're a dynamite agent, and you have a lot that you can teach and share. So I'm looking forward to your commentary added into this. Nicole was going to do it, but she's sick. We wish her better. I don't know if she's planning on being on the training at some point today, but I think it was strep throat. So she doesn't have much of a voice, and it wasn't going to make sense for her to train. So, okay, I'm going to jump into this. We're going to talk a little bit about negotiating inspections. Well, we're going to talk a lot about it, actually. You know, in the last couple of years, we've seen a real shift in the market with how many homes are going under contract contingent to inspection. And I think for a long time, at least I know this is true with me, it was very easy to kind of get out of sync on how to go through the process of an inspection, because just about every client I had was waiving them for a period of about 2 years. I don't think actually I had done an inspection for at least a full year, not a client who actually went through the process. So it's always good to have, isn't that crazy? Yeah, it was just the weird market. It's always good to kind of refresh what that process looks like. And if you're a newer agent or you're an agent who got licensed around the time of COVID, you know, maybe it's not something that you have had a lot of practice with. So, Ian's going to chime in on a lot of the things that he does as well, that he's exceptionally good at in navigating inspections and getting them to move forward. But I'm going to follow this process in the outline, which is going to just be step by step of what you can talk about with your clients before they make an offer or start an inspection on a property, how to find the right type of inspector, and what to do if you're deciding to attend that inspection. So for pre-inspection preparation, you're going to want to discuss with your buyer the difference between safety and maintenance issues. And this is something that I think is critically important. If your clients go into an inspection or, you know, make an offer on a house and they think that, you know, a seller is required to update paint or replace cabinetry, or maybe there's a little bit of trim that's damaged, oftentimes those are factored into the price of the home. And there is a distinct difference between something that is a safety issue, which really does need to be addressed, versus something that is just a maintenance or a cosmetic issue. All homes come with maintenance, including brand new construction homes. And so setting the tone for this up front is really important for a successful inspection experience for your clients. You want to set that expectation, remind them that while it's tempting to ask for every minor defect to be corrected, they really want to focus on the more significant safety-related issues, and that this can help them as well when we're dealing with a low inventory or multiple offer situation, which we still have. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, the expectation I would like to set when I clients do is learning the length of the inspection report that they're going to be using. So it's like a new construction inspection report. It's going to be 20 to 40 pages. The report they're probably going to get is going to be 60 to 120 pages. Their class to get that is mostly minor cosmetic items of those, the majority of those items. But you can expect a very large report.
Ian, is it possible to have you move down here just for better volume? Sorry, bring your seat down too. It was just a comment made. So Ian was making an excellent point, and I'll let him kind of repeat some of those tips, but it was about setting the tone or expectation for how many pages go into that report. So what'd you say? Sure.
Quick too, like even if most of your inspection reports aren't 60 to 100 pages, 120 pages, if you set that expectation and they get an inspection report that's 40 to 50 pages, then they're probably gonna be pretty happy with that.
I'm thinking my inspector slapped it.
Yeah, right.
Just like. Don't say full house. 32 pages.
Sure. Who do you use?
Miranda for the inspections. And he has been.
Okay, I muted a couple of you. Don't take that personal, just for sake of background noise. If you could just keep it on mute. What'd you say? Take it personal? Ashley said, take it personal. Just keep it on mute unless you're wanting to comment or ask a question, okay? Anything else you wanted to add before we kind of go on?
No.
Okay, so great tip on setting the tone for how many pages are going to be in that report, so it's not shock to your clients when they actually receive it. To your point, a lot of things are kind of redundant in an inspection report as well.
Yep.
So along the same lines with Ian's suggestion, I would tell them, you know, like oftentimes there's going to be a summary at the front and then the rest of the report goes into more detail. And maybe that's one of the reasons why there's so many pages. So fantastic point. I will actually add that on into the outline. Okay, finding or recommending a qualified home inspector. My recommendation is that the inspector is licensed. It's not required in Minnesota, but it is required in Wisconsin. Or they've completed some kind of accredited course for home inspectors. You don't want Bob the plumber doing a home inspection business, you know, who does home inspection business on the side, being responsible for conveying to your client all of the things they should be looking for in a house. So I always look for someone who has good reviews. They've come highly recommended, usually by my clients. Maybe you've sat down and you've developed a relationship with them, and you know, they have a way of speaking to your clients that you're really comfortable with. Another thing is that not all inspectors are created equal. Some of them are going to use fear tactics. They might overwhelm buyers with services or quote prices on repairs that they're really not qualified to you know, make a quote on. If you're not an electrician, don't tell someone that you know exactly how much it's going to cost to replace an electrical box, or tell them that it's going to be $40,000 to replace all of the siding on a house. So the inspector that you work with and how they talk to your clients is very important. I also recommend contacting the inspector prior to the inspection to make sure that they've reviewed the seller's disclosure and they go out over any specific concerns that the buyer might have about the property that was already brought to light during the showing. So if I know my buyers are concerned about something with the foundation, I'm going to make sure that the inspector has a heads up. Hey, this is something that came up on inspection. Here's how I talked them through this, just so you're aware of it. You know, I'd appreciate your kind of like taking a look at that before, you know, you get into the conversation with the client, and make sure that you're reviewing the disclosure, because are you going to blow up a bunch of things about the house? Hey, there's water damage here in the ceiling. Well, it's in the disclosure and they've noted that that was a prior issue and it was taken care of, and there's no existing issue. So just making sure that they've reviewed those documents or will is important as well. You want to add anything?
No, that's good.
Okay. Sure.
Making sure too that when you. I had a dog show price now. So when we're going through, you walk through. And then one of the agents that does show up, my walkthroughs. And when the inspector brings up water damage, I begin trying to say, remember that was noted in, you know. You talk whatever, just like putting out things from themselves so that we're seeing that the inspector taking out, and yes, they know that. So.
Yep. So
Nothing's a surprise. No,
Ashley Beaufort is making the point, kind of as the segue into the next topic in the outline, about attending the inspection and making sure that she's pointing out things that she's seen on the seller's disclosure. So if an inspector is pointing them out again, she's able to say, remember, this is already on the seller's disclosure and we talked through this. That way it's not a surprise. Okay. Attend the inspection. So attending the inspection is optional as an agent, but it does give you firsthand insight into, you know, the severity of the issues discovered, and it allows you an opportunity to contradict what the inspector is claiming if needed, right? So I was forced to work with an inspector on my previous team, And it was notorious how he would always point out that the chimney flue coming off of the furnace had less than a 1-inch gap all around that wood, the flooring, subflooring that was going through, and pointed out that that's a fire hazard. Now, most of the time those houses were 40 or 50 years old and they hadn't burned down. So is it really a fire hazard? No, it's new code to prevent fire. But if you don't have any indication of scorching and things, like, it's important to just kind of sometimes bring those inspectors down into their zone and make sure that you're clarifying that. And don't be afraid to contradict an inspector right there if you need to. It's also a great way to kind of learn about the process of home inspections and make sure you're really comfortable with the people that you're recommending. Or if you're a newer agent and you want to see what an inspector does all the way through the process. I think for probably the first 2 or 3 years, I attended every single home inspection just so I could learn the process that those inspectors were using. And doing that allows you to kind of change up how you communicate with your clients during showings. You can almost point out in advance, if you were to have a home inspection, an inspector would likely point out this issue here. Here's a remedy to that. I've attended enough inspections to know, or my experience in real estate, etc., tells me this is what that repair would look like. It's not a major issue, or it is a major issue, whatever the case may be with that. It also really demonstrates your commitment to your clients. I think with first-time homebuyers especially, it's important to attend inspections. I choose to do that. You're not required to do that, but they can be easily scared by some of these things that come up on inspections. And so for me, it's an opportunity to really support my clients, demonstrate my commitment to them, and, you know, have them appreciate the fact that an agent accompanied them. So, yeah, you're invested.
Then with one person, first time. To then tell them all the things that are wrong with the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can run into personal chat.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you're talking personally on you.
It's not, but my goal truly when we're going, like, when we get to the inspection point, because I've gone to so many inspections now, that when I'm showing at home, my goal is to make it to where once we get to inspection, the only things we're surprised about. Sewer, radon, anything in the attic, anything electrical, everything else, the structural things, for the most part, it's their basements and like. So.
Ashley's talking about her personal preference for attending home inspections. She develops a relationship with her clients and then just passing them off to someone that they've not met to kind of tear a house to pieces. She does not want her buyers caught off guard. And the goal is that the only surprises in an inspection for her clients would be things like radon mitigation or what is it? Big structural issues that are buried and unseen. So, yes.
Go, so it's a waste of time, but I feel like the longer I've done this now, especially if it's a first time home buyers. It's like, cause then you get a report and then you get like a, what the fuck more, you're trying to like downgrade something that an inspector picked up. And like, first time home buyers like, oh my god, I looked at this, and it's a big deal, it's like, I feel like it's way easier to do it at the moment, like, with the inspector right here.
Mhm.
So you can even be like, oh yeah, you're right about that, it's like, when you have the facts, then I always feel like people will be like, well, you just obviously you want to buy a house.
Right, you're trying to force me into this and it's a piece of garbage.
If I don't go out.
What's happening? I don't know what's going on. I know. We don't have control issues or anything though.
So I think go, and it goes back to the first point that we talked about.
We want perspective here, so.
Recommending a qualified home inspector, and I trust my partners to do that. I use LC Fields exclusively, and I 100% do it.
Let's do it. I'd love to. Let's look back at my track record of homes falling through during or
You're called, you're doing inspection.
what's that? Deal? Yeah, they've always done a great job for me. Either way, besides them, whoever you guys decide to use, I see it as a partnership, and I'm also,
As much as I know, and disclaimer, I did attend inspections for a long time, as a new agent, and I think that's good for a new agent in business to attend those.
But moving forward, I'm not a licensed inspector. Right? I mean, I know how to read a report, we track my liners, and hey, so, anyway, whoever, anyway, whether, when they're meeting the inspector, that's his area of expertise. You know. And if you go through all of your deals, you come up here to the time, and come up the inspection time, and then come up the time that you're gonna have to take to go over the report, and go through the items anyways. Let those hours over a given basis, and I think it'd be pretty stuck with how much time it actually takes you.
If you go to the inspection, you don't really have to go to the report. You're just, I have to take, you just put it in to negotiate.
That's how I feel like I'm getting now.
I feel like we could have a debate, like where we have two teams, pro attend, not attend.
To report that it has to take you to drive to Cambridge to.
Well, remember, I didn't go to Cambridge.
Because it's really okay.
Clearly, there's something that happened here between Ashley and Ian, and they are on opposite sides of the fence.
No, honestly, what it- both processes can work.
Yep.
Just depends what you're most comfortable with and what you find to be successful in your own business. So that's the approach I take. A lot of people don't take that approach, and I say,
Thank you.
100%.
I will add to this, which I think actually the kind of change in perspective is great. But it's, your clients have a say in this as well. I've had clients where I've said, would you like me, like I showed them 40 houses. I really want this to work out, like I'd love to attend the inspection. And they are just like, no, we'd prefer to go through it ourselves with our inspector. If your clients have a preference for that as well, take that into consideration. If they ask you, hey, we would really appreciate it if you attended this with us, or are you planning to attend? I'm happy to say, well, in this case, I wasn't planning to attend, but is that something that's important to you? And use that as a communication opportunity with them to find out why. Did they have a bad experience with an inspector before? Are they really nervous about a certain aspect of the house? Maybe that's a chance for you to kind of talk through that without having to go to the inspection. Or maybe you decide, you know what, it's better for me to attend this time. So whether you choose not to go or you do choose to go, I will tell you, now that I have enough experience, I'm very selective on my inspectors. I know my stuff, okay? I don't have to attend every single inspection, but I prefer to do it with first-time home buyers. That's my preference. So you got to do what works for you. Unhinged. Yeah.
I think it's important to go and have a notice to the client, and especially a first time buyer, because that report can be very daunting
Mhm.
to a first time home buyer. That's preventing.
Yeah, and sometimes they're speaking a foreign language too when they start talking about double taps on an electrical panel. And what is a double tap? That sounds terrible,
I would say like first time home buyer, 100% like in the city. Because those are scarier.
Mm.
Just like typical like.
Yeah.
There's some scary stuff.
Kelly's giving her opinion and feedback on the importance of going with first-time home buyers, especially if they have any anxiety. Sam referred to them as unhinged clients. It's whatever is your preference, but I also think, become an expert at the product that you are selling. The trainings that I did in January was with the intention of giving you more information on what goes into a home so that you're maximizing the showing time there. And if you feel something's going to get called out in inspection and your client is dead set on having one, that's your opportunity to really point that out and show them that, hey, I'm not trying to just shove you into a house. I want to acknowledge that this is something here, but here's how we remedy the situation. Is it a maintenance issue or is it a safety issue? Go ahead, Jackson.
I think it comes down to setting expectations when you do go or go, like, you really can set the expectations. What's going to look like, and if you go, then you're like, this is not a normal home, just be aware that it is gonna look way worse on paper, and not actually falling apart, your house is just old.
Mhm.
This is just gonna be something going on in Minneapolis, and you probably done a great job of.
Talked a little bit about that at the beginning of training.
Right.
Yeah, you weren't in here, but that's okay. We
Hey,
appreciate that.
Joanna.
We'll say adding to it, the age of the house, I think is great, right? Like just reality here, we're not buying brand new construction. Like they're going to find something and you're paying your inspector to find something. So, yes, Jen.
One of the things I do on the rare occasions that I can't go is just set up like a quick 10-minute Zoom or, FaceTime call with the buyers and the inspector. So that way they know that like we know each other well and that they can see the vibe in that. So if I can't go, I typically will do that so that they can chat beforehand and we can let them know the things we're concerned about. That way they know they're, ultimately, I think that's part of the role. We should be there, whether it's that way or in person. So that's usually what I do.
Okay. Thank you for, it's quite the heated debate. Thank you for that perspective, Jen. I think that comes down to what kind of home inspector are you choosing? Hold on, Kelly, I'm going to come to you in just a sec. What kind of, who are you choosing for a home inspector and how you want that introduction process to be? I always ask my client if they want me to help set up an inspection for them. I work with a few great inspectors. It's all based on client feedback. And then make an introduction that way. If you want to do it on Zoom, if you want to do it in text message, however you want to do it, that works for you. That's great. Yes, Kelly.
We're still on the other side and then on the listing side, I guess that's the amazing home. I asked the listing agent if they're gonna be attending, inspection if there is one.
Oh, okay.
Because I want to know if they're like, and like that agent, like just would be.
Have you had that happen?
I've
never had a listing agent go to an inspection. Have you had that happen?
To not go on.
No, go, I asked them, they're gonna be accompanying the buyers. How much price?
Got it.
That's
Let's know about it. Not on here.
I just wanna know because there's pain points in the home, I need to push like working. On the same page, like.
Sure.
Like we're gonna be able to have that person. That can be able to explain.
Sure. So she's just talking about advocating for her client, asking if the listing agent has an intention of being there or the buyer's agent. Oh, so you as the listing agent are establishing communication with the buyer's agent. Okay, that's great. Okay, so she proactively reaches out when she's the listing agent to ask the buyer. That's what I thought. I'm like, I would never attend a
Buyer's agent, if they're gonna be.
that makes more sense. So as a listing agent, she's reaching out to the buyer's agent to find out if that agent is attending the inspection with their client to kind of set the tone for communication going forward. Kelly has a strength when it comes to communicating with the co-op agent on the other side. So interesting tactic. I think I will add that in here as well for communication. Okay, let's move on to reviewing the inspection report. Sometimes this is daunting. I hate being surprised by big issues. I hate structure tech inspections, by the way, because they're gonna just make mountains out of molehills. Preach. Ian and I agree on this, okay? When it comes to the inspector report, so Ian's recommendation already in advance, you're setting the tone for how many pages potentially could be there. I like Jackson's point that he added in today about, if it's an older home, maybe just kind of reminding them the age of the home and the fact that they are going to find something. So to keep that in mind when they're looking at what's on the report. All reports are available electronically. I always ask for the report to be sent to me. So I find out, in advance from the client, I ask the inspector to send that to me. Are you okay with that? Technically, the buyer owns the report. They do not even have to share it with you as their agent. Most of the time they're going to want to. I've never had someone say no, but as a courtesy, I ask for that. So categorize issues into 2 different categories. Safety or major operational issues, things that are like electrical faults, smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, major leaks, things that are health hazards, structural problems, or faulty HVAC systems. These are also going to be the things that if you are working with a VA buyer or an FHA buyer are going to get called out. I would put them in this category as well. Broken glass, going to get called out on a VA loan, going to get our appraisal, will get called out on an FHA as well. Major cement issues, right? Like if you've got lifting cement or big gaps or the rise is too high on a sunken cement pad, that's going to get called on a VA appraisal. It will get called out FHA as well. So put those things that are noted into this category because we might have to proactively address them before appraisal. And then maintenance or minor issues, cosmetic defects. little bit of chipping paint inside a house, not a big deal if it's not, if it's built after 1978. Minor leaks, you know, how many times have you stuffed things under the sink in your kitchen, right? And you accidentally like bump a little bit of your plumbing fixture and maybe you just loosened one of your fixtures. That doesn't mean the house is falling apart and the plumbing is just a wreck, right? So like kind of breaking that down into a minor repair, yes, might be something we want to have asked for or corrected, but it's not a major issue that's a deal breaker. Peeling paint is the exception when it comes to kind of like things that might be called out on loans. Again, FHA, VA, it's going to get called out. So anything you'd like to add with that?
Nothing, Chris?
Determine what repairs you want to negotiate. So I strongly encourage you, when you're setting the tone with your client, to focus on safety or major operational issues first. So these are the non-negotiable, right? Like they can affect the value and the livability of the home. Maybe it's not going to pass appraisal because of that. Make that kind of like your category one of what you're focusing on. From there, you're going to decide which, if any, maintenance issues you want to request and prioritize those based on cost and necessity. A slight leaking plumbing fixture in a bathroom or under the kitchen sink is a minor fix, but if it goes undone, like unaddressed, like it damages the cabinet, right? Then you're looking at maybe having to replace cabinetry and things. So that's maybe a smaller maintenance type issue that I do think is worth requesting. You know, a cover plate on an electrical outlet, or if there was a fixture hanging from the ceiling at one point and it's kind of open, that's an electrical issue that's going to get called out on appraisal anyway, regardless of what type of loan you have. So just proactively ask for the cover plates to be installed. Those are minor and not necessarily expensive, but a necessity. And then doing a combination of these types of repairs can be a great negotiating tactic, right? Minor repair requests can be dropped if a seller does not want to agree to those initial requests, and this makes it look like you're more reasonable. So maybe you're putting together a list of 10 items, and you know 5 of them you have to get done, but you built in some more minor requests or repairs. When seller comes back and says, we're not doing all this, we'll do this, this, and this, but we're not going to do this. Now you have an opportunity to say, okay, well, we'll work with that. And we can drop this repair and this repair, but we have to have these, you know, 4 things done for sure to move the sale forward. So any feedback you want to give?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the same concept as coming in a little bit lower on purchase price. Then, okay, we're probably gonna need somewhere in the middle. It's the same concept, right?
Good way to look at it. So I always try to use that as a negotiating tactic. What are a couple, I call them fluff. What's some fluff I can build into this inspection request? If I get it, great. If I don't, I know I can drop them and focus on the major issues, which are really important to the client. So then you're going to draft a list of all repair requests. I love you guys. I have seen some of the messiest inspection amendments come across. Sales manager mom, just like smackdown, right? Like I want you to be so clear in how you're writing these up, because I'm going to share an example with you. An agent on our team, a year and a half ago, called me because they had purchased a house where it was coming with new windows. Okay. But the windows were not like installed yet. And the windows we were waiting on, the agent was waiting on delivery. Our agent represented the buyer. We get to closing day and the windows are not installed. The inspection amendment clearly said that the windows are coming with the property, right? Like the seller's going to have new windows added to this room and this room, or for this room and this room, but didn't say that they had to pay for installation of it. So just leaving out that verbiage meant that all that the seller had to do was have those new windows delivered and sit in a garage and said, good luck. We're not spending the expense of having them installed. So unless you're like very specific on what you're asking the seller to do, don't leave room for that kind of error, right? Don't be ambiguous when it comes to the kind of repair that you're asking for. So always use a blank amendment to purchase agreement. You know where you can find this in your transaction desk. Should also be available through Click Contracts. Clearly itemize the repair list, how the repair should be completed, and whom the work will be performed by. So I have a inspection clause that establishes this. I don't have the example readily available, but I'd be happy to send it to you guys. It's available for the whole team. And I state at the very top, it's kind of like my opening line for inspection, that the repairs will be completed by a licensed professional where required by law, and that receipts and lien waivers will be delivered to the buyers within 7 days of closing. Yes, Jackson. EXP does. That has some of that clause built in.
That's the transaction list.
Okay. Is it in Click as well? Okay, so there's an inspection amendment form now that EXP has available for its agents. I don't think that was available at the time we did this. They keep coming up with new forms, but that's great. And apparently it has some of that language in there already, so you can determine when the repairs will be completed by, who will be completing them, etc. So we'll take a look for that, and I'll send it out maybe in an email to the whole team for review. But it is also available in Click Contracts. Excuse me, guys.
Yeah, there's one that's pretty intense that says that.
Um,
And it's like scary, but I always go and delete that.
That's great advice. Sam is talking about being careful with the wording because some of the amendments have like very bold or scary language in it. If seller doesn't agree, purchase agreement is canceled. So maybe you want to just tweak that verbiage a little bit. How I write, I have a clause that goes in at the end, and I kind of put my repairs between my opening line, and at the end I say that by signing below, seller agrees to complete all repairs, and buyer agrees to remove the inspection contingency and move forward with the purchase of the property. When it comes to language like cancellation, I agree with Sam. I think that that can just rub sellers the wrong way if you're very in your face. So be mindful of the language you use when you're writing that up. You can request concessions in price in lieu of repairs. Sometimes it might be more advantageous, or your buyer is going to want to handle it that way. An example would be at the bottom, I would say, in lieu of repairs, buyer will accept a $5,000 contribution to closing costs or a $5,000 reduction in purchase price. If it's a tedious type repair, they might be more comfortable determining how that's done versus asking the seller to do it. So I've had that before when we had to have a new water heater installed. They were very specific on, hey, we want to switch over to a direct vent water heater, a high efficiency one. Well, I mean, we could put that in there, but the sellers weren't necessarily willing to agree to it. So the preference was that they would take on that repair themselves and just get a credit for the cost. So you do have that option, and it's a nice way to negotiate as well. Because some sellers might just say, you know what, I just did this, guys. I just did to my Minnetonka listing, we took a $5,000 reduction so we could move inspection forward. That worked better for my sellers, and that's what the buyers wanted. So that's always an option as well. You know, any feedback?
Yeah, when you're drafting one of these up too, it's, you don't feel like if you really do major items, really big ticket items, or if it's just really messy in general, don't be afraid to ask for a second opinion or a second set of eyes on it. When you're dealing with a really messy inspection amendment, or there's like really expensive items on that amendment, there can be no room to be ambiguous. Nothing can be left to interpretation. You need to be really, really specific. And if you're not 100% sure that you've done everything possible to be specific on that amendment, please forward that to sales coordinator, or Celine or somebody.
Great advice. If you didn't hear Ian well, he's talking about if there's like big repairs and you're not certain about how to word that correctly, or maybe there's more that goes into it, get a second opinion. Use your sales coordinator to review that document for you. We've got a lot of really smart agents on this team. You can ask for some feedback as well in your PODS Slack channel, just to have a second set of eyes on that document and make sure you're covering all the bases. I like the word. We don't want ambiguous, right? Like we hate that word when it comes to inspection requests. We don't want to be ambiguous in any way. Make sure that you're being very detailed in how you're wording that. Open a line of communication with the listing agent. Do you want to go over this at all? Because I think you do it so well.
Sure. I mean, the conversation I have with the listing agent when we're asking for items is let me come from the stance that one, we're going in the same direction, but I also frame it in a way like this is a pain in the ass for me too. So even though I'm gonna agree with my buyers, maybe I don't. I phrase it as like, hey, we're listening to a little more than I want here. And I apologize, I know it's not, present it to yourselves, let me know what we can do. Obviously, we wanna keep this thing moving, like, let me know what items you sellers want to work with on this. That approach, as opposed to, I don't know if you guys have ever been on one side of it, working with the agent that says, well, we need this, this, and this, because it's just from here, the inspection report, is these items need to be taken care of from the closing. When somebody says that to me, does that make you want to work with them, or is that if you want to favor them, and you're like, fuck you, I'm not agreeing to this. If you guys want to move forward, we're going to take care of one item. That dialogue is coming from the place of empathy with the listing agent and the sellers. It just, the conversation just goes so well, and usually when I'm relaying that information to the listing agent, if I've done my job correctly, that listing agent is relaying that same information in the same tone to her sellers that I did with that, right? So that's the approach that I take. I'm always very gentle, very understanding. Even if we're just asking for a little bit, I'll thank them for their efforts. For working on getting this deal closed with us. That's pretty much it.
And the reason I wanted him to go over this approach is, we've all probably experienced the opposite side of that, right? Ian does this exceptionally well, where he looks at the listing agent as a tool, basically, and helping move the sale forward by establishing really good communication, and they're your friend in the transaction, right? They're your co-op in that sense. Establishing good communication with them in a non-threatening way is gonna go so far in getting those requests to move forward. The saying goes, you can get more bees with honey than you can with vinegar, right? So in this case, he's using the honey approach, which is great. Establishing great communication, having empathy for the seller, even if he doesn't mean any of it. We should be careful of Ian, but great job with that.
Sure.
Okay, so maintaining a positive relationship with the other agent. I think this is what we just pretty much covered in detail. So I'm happy to send this outline out to the whole team as well. But he basically this whole section here was written based on Ian's approach when we did a training on this last year in the summertime. So if you missed out on that, I'll send this out, but some great tips in here from him on how to establish communication with the other side. Okay, so consider alternative solutions. If the seller pushes back on certain types of repairs, what are the compromises, like price reductions, like closing cost credits, or even purchasing a home warranty for the buyer? Sometimes you've got to get creative. My current listing, we were not going to give them the price reduction that they wanted. My sellers are firm. This is the number that we have to meet. End of discussion. Well, what that turned into is buyers were only willing to come up so far, and the buyer's agent was tired of showing them properties. And so he conceded $2,500 of his commission to make sure that the sale moved forward, because they were out-of-state buyers. He's just been out doing all sorts of Zoom showings or waiting till they can come into town. And it worked out in this particular situation. So I don't like seeing things like that, but I would just say get creative. Maybe it's a home warranty, right? Letting people know, hey, an inspection is just going to cover the now of what's happening with the property. It's informative, but it doesn't necessarily fix all of the issues. We can ask for some repairs, but a home warranty can give you a degree of coverage that lasts long beyond the closing. And that gives you an opportunity to build up your own kind of maintenance account for doing some of these repairs and items yourself as you're living in the home. So I'm a big fan of introducing a home warranty just to give them some peace of mind and some added coverage if needed. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I use that for a lot.
Okay. Same thing on Ian's part. If a repair is done but not to the agreed upon standards, or if further issues arise, be ready to go back to the table. Okay, so we have an amendment, we're in a locked agreement, a repair is done, you come back on final walkthrough, it looks like absolute crap. Sorry, we're not taking that. I just had this happen in January as well. A repair that was supposed to be done, and it turned out to be a water softener hose that was spraying water all over the place. So before my clients would go to closing, we had to execute an amendment saying they were going to have an HVAC professional out there that day to take care of the issue, and they agreed to any cost associated with the repair to fix the problem. So sometimes those things happen last minute, but just because they come up either after receipts are given to you or at final walkthrough doesn't mean the deal is dead. Those things can be fixed. You just need an amendment because it's part of the contract terms. So put it in writing. Stay focused on the end goal. So both sides still want to finalize the sale. Sometimes this means letting go of minor issues to keep the transaction going forward. Maybe we go in and we're doing our final walkthrough and we see that, hey, they did this repair, but I don't love it, but I can take on, you know, fixing it myself and doing a better job. Is it a big deal? You know, or when it comes to GFCI outlets, those things trip all the time, guys, no matter what. And what are they going to cost you? $14 to $16 at Home Depot to get a new receptacle to put in? You can technically do electrician work yourself or electrical work yourself as long as you're the resident of the home. Still need a permit, but you can, just so you know. So just think about the fact that the goal for your clients is to close on the sale, and helping them kind of talk through the issues and what is minor that they're willing to let go of versus what is really major and needs to make the home safe is important. And that will keep the sale on track. If an agreement can't be reached on certain repairs, you know, consider if it's a deal maker for a deal breaker, excuse me, for your buyer, or if there's another solution that can satisfy both parties. Maybe there's a partial repair, or maybe they're willing to give a credit for that specific repair itself, but then do a few other repairs. So get creative and think about the, you know, the end goal, right? They want this house, sellers want to sell this house. How can we keep it together? Doesn't look great for a seller if a house falls through on inspection, right? How many times have we seen that? Oh, why did it fall through on inspection? Or 2 or 3 times it fell through on inspection. Is it really because the house is in that rough a shape, or is it a seller who's just not willing to negotiate repairs? So if we've been on the flip side of that, keep that in mind that a seller wants to sell a house as well. I'm representing a seller, you know, I try to set the stage for that. You know, like we want to be reasonable when it comes to repairs because of what can happen if this falls through on inspection. I'm going to talk a little bit about that at the team meeting as well. So make sure you tune in for that today. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I guess the only thing I was going to say is be mindful of the cost associated with you with the inspection point and you having to go back and show your client's properties and start the process all over again. So just looking at the picture as a whole, making sure that you're getting creative, solution oriented, considering all the time right in the long run. For example, when my clients purchased a townhome in St. Paul, we negotiated the $50,000 off the purchase price to begin with. After inspection, was $25 off. Then they wanted all this shit to get done too, by the only then. So 3 or 4 items. And they were very adamant about it. And I told them, no, we're not going to be asking for these items. We're going to hire a handyman once you guys are clear to close, and I'll take care of these items. And we're going to focus on this. And we got the 25,000 repairs, and I told the listing agent who I had really good dialogue with after the fact that they wanted more stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, my seller would have told you that she's
Where to stick it?
Yeah, because it was already negotiated 50,000 off purchase price, and that extra 25 was almost enough to blow up the deal. And just getting creative on those other items probably saved the deal for us.
Great advice.
So saving your time through it, but then also saving your clients. Like if you see something in your show that says something like this is going to come up on inspection, are you okay with this being something that you have to assume that the seller will not? And if the answer is no, save them the $500, $600 from going and getting an inspection
Move on to another house.
and just move on. Don't, you know, just say, well, that's why I get an inspection. You're take time, money, yourself time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's about the client experience too, right? My clients were really grateful when I spent $250 to get those items done that were important to them. And it's even meal.
Along with that, something I'd like doing is if I'm in the house with my clients, calling the listing agent on the phone. I use that as a tactic in multiple offer situations. Okay, I don't want you to just hear it from me. Let's see what the listing agent has to say. If you got interest in the property, you can call the listing agent, put them on speakerphone. Hopefully they answer while your client is there. And just ask, buyers have some interest in this property, but we noticed this issue in the basement. I'm assuming sellers are aware of that. Do they have any plans on correcting this? And an agent's going to tell you if, yeah, we're aware of it, it's in the disclosure, or, let's put a deal together. Let's put something on paper. To me, if they say something like that, they're open-minded to the fact they've already had that conversation with their seller, right? And so there's a window of opportunity there maybe to get that repair recovered. So Ashley brings up a good point. Like if it's a big deal breaker type of issue, maybe move on. But if you're going to do that, you can always reach out to the listing agent so that your clients can be quiet and hear what the listing agent has to say themselves to you. So just something else to try in the process of that. And then document everything. So once we're going to go on to this last point here. Once an agreement is reached, you want to get everything in writing. It ensures that all parties are clear on what the expectation is, and it protects everyone involved. Remember, your purchase agreement is your governing document, and that includes all amendments and addenda, right? So if it's not on paper, it does not exist. Require that the seller provides the lien waivers, the paid receipts, and proof of all completion on all repairs at least 1 week prior to closing. I like to do that because title's going to ask for lien waivers. Typically, if they're valued, the repair was valued over $500. And you don't want to be dealing with this stuff when you are an hour from closing and you're doing your final walkthrough. So having the proof of all of that is going to help set your buyer's mind at ease when they walk through a property. We got to wrap up here within 2 minutes. Do you want to add anything?
So like, just especially for new agents, I've seen this happen. Be mindful of the deadline. Because if they,
Yes.
because I've seen where they put in this amendment with all these things that their buyers absolutely wanted, and the listing agent ghosted. And 2 days later, they're like, oh, I haven't heard from you. Oh, well, sorry, the deadline's passed.
Correct.
I had it.
Yes.
That can be a horrible thing.
Be mindful of your deadlines. I'm actually going to talk about that in our team meeting from the seller's perspective, but it will apply to buyers as well.
Yes,
So hopefully I will see
that's-
all of you.
That was a question I started thinking about this from the seller's perspective and disclosure. And when agents decide to send the entire report to the seller's agent, and what do we do then? Because now you have it in your email and you have to present it to the seller, right? So I'll talk to you separate, Jelena, about that.
Sure.
That's fine.
And just so you know, in the state of Minnesota, home inspection is opinion. It is not fact unless you have a qualified professional. I think there's some gray area there. We're just delivering something in an email doesn't mean you are aware of the contents of it. And I think that that's a tactic that some agents use. It's different than putting pictures in the bed of an email where you open it up and it's right there in your face. But remember, like Ian's pointing out, our goal is a smooth transaction for both sides. And the better way to do that is great communication with the listing agent. When you try forcing them into a situation, it doesn't always work out well. In fact, if anything, it's going to piss off the other side and it's going to be a miserable transaction from that point forward. And is that what you want, the experience you want your buyers to be left with? So, okay, we got to shut it down. Team meeting's going to start in 5, okay? I'll see all of you then. Reach out to your sales coordinator, myself, if you've got any questions about inspections. Thanks so much for coming today, and we will see you all later. I appreciate everyone who contributed too. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. That was very informative.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Seriously.